Thanks, bud. Good morning, everybody. Hey, this afternoon, 3 o'clock, Fall Fest here. I wish I could send to every one of you an article by James Jordan. You don't know him, he's a theologian. But he wrote a great article on the fact that All Hallows Eve was a Christian holiday. Well, not a holiday in the sense that you got the day off, but that it was a day specially set aside. And we don't worship the devil or any of those things around here. Most of us don't. But we'll celebrate a fall festival. You know, 3 of the festivals of Israel are in the fall. So we're just kind of doing what Israel does. We have a fall festival here. And it starts at 3 o'clock, and I think it wraps up at 6 or something another like that. And then at 6 o'clock, I've got to be over at Spain High School. I'm going to do what Barry normally does. I'm going to take the coaches' supper. It's just the coaches, right? Take the coaches' supper, and then I get to do, since I'm taking them supper, I get to give them a devotional. So remember me in that. And this past Friday night, I was at Helena High School, and Nolan down there, who's the drummer there, gave me his sticks, which I'm going to be taking over the drums now on Sunday mornings. No, I don't think you have to worry about that. So, but Mary Kate, who is a member here, was in the homecoming court. And Emmanuel, of course, plays football there. He kept coming to the sidelines, wanting to get my advice on certain things. And I told him, I said, you make me feel like Belichick's girlfriend. I'm out calling plays, because you know she's calling those plays up there. He's too good a coach to be that bad in college. Anyway. Next Sunday after this service, I'm going to be in the, not next Sunday, on November the 9th after this service. For any of you who are interested in going, I've had so many people ask, I'm going to have some folks from Israel on Zoom. I'm going to be in the next room, and we'll talk about that. That's on the 9th. Then on the 16th, very important for you as a church to be here as we come back and we talk further and vote on this building project. We'll get numbers and all of those kind of things that night, and the projections that our owners rep, who are our members, are going to put before us. Now, all of that, but now I want to come to something. I don't often do this. Got this book yesterday and sat down and just started into it. It was hard for me to put down. Book by, it's amazing to me how God has his people in places where you think there's not a single believer in that place. This is a professor of all things philosophy at Boston College who wrote this. He's written about 80 books, is a solid believer. His name is Peter Kreeft, K-R-E-E-F-T, and he wrote a book called 3 Philosophies of Life. He says the greatest book ever written was the book of, the Bible, but he says out of that is Ecclesiastes. He says, and he's got Job and Song of Songs, and he said these 3 are the 3 philosophies of life. Ecclesiastes, life is vanity, emptiness. Job is life is suffering. We all suffer. And then Song of Songs, life is love. We're all looking for love. If you're looking for a great book to read, this is profoundly fascinating. And I would encourage you, especially, this guy would be a great guy. Julie, for 2 weeks in a row, I'm giving y'all names over there. This guy would be a fascinating guy for one of your high school students to do a paper on. And anyway, there you go. All right, now, Ecclesiastes chapter 2. It is a very sobering chapter. So let me begin like this. Errol Flynn, in his day in the 40s and 50s, was considered to be the greatest actor in all of Hollywood. He's considered to be perhaps the greatest actor of all time. He and Orson Welles would probably go down as those two type of guys, the greatest of their time. And he was a god. In Hollywood, he was considered a god. He could do anything. He could say anything. He was the most controversial actor that Hollywood had ever seen, at least up until that time, and still is very controversial to this day. Did anything that he wanted, said anything that came, whatever he thought, he just said it. If he wanted to do it, he would do it. And started somewhere around 50 some odd movies, which is kind of fascinating. He's always known for the adventures of Robin Hood. All I could think of was Superman. The Adventures of Robin Hood, the Santa Fe Trail, the Western, the Santa Fe Trail, and The Sun Also Rises. So he could do serious parts as well as, non-serious parts like Robin Hood. Interesting fella because he left a trademark that nobody could ever figure out. And he never really answered it for himself, somewhat, but not definitively. Interesting in that he put a question mark on everything he had. If he bought a car, he'd have a question mark painted on it. His tailor-made shirts had a question mark tailored on the pocket. His suits would have a question mark in it somewhere, on it or in it somewhere. He'd have a question mark on his handkerchiefs, question mark. So he had just put even in his home, on the facade of his home, into the frieze on his home, he'd have these question marks on the mantle in the house. He'd have question marks just everywhere, as if to say, I'm not really sure about the purpose of my life. Now, that's what he was saying. He said, I suppose it's because I wonder what my purpose really is. Is this really all that there is in life? Am I doing all that there is in life? Well, that's exactly what Solomon is saying. When you come to the second chapter of Ecclesiastes, Solomon is making this comment: is this all that there is to life? And is there nothing more? And so if you've got your Bibles open, I want you to kind of look at this and listen to what he says, beginning in verse 1 of chapter 2. I said to myself, now let me translate the Hebrew there. My mouth spoke to my spirit. That's the Hebrew. My mouth spoke to my spirit. Now, it's an interesting way. We would never say it like that. We just would say, I said to myself. What he's implying here is something more deeper, something that is deeper than that. He's implying that I have counseled with no one. I've talked to no one. I'm going to do what I want to do. I listen only to myself. That's Errol Flynn. That's a lot of others. But that's exactly what Solomon is saying at this point. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. There's nobody else out there that can answer the questions of life. I am smarter than everybody else around here, so I'm just going to take counsel with myself. Now, just think about this. This is the guy, if you look back into Proverbs. Proverbs is right here before Ecclesiastes. And you get back to the 19th chapter, listen to what he says in verse 20. Listen to counsel and accept discipline. Now, this was in a sober moment in his life. Ecclesiastes was written in an even more sober moment, but looking back at the foolishness he went through. He did not do what he says here. Listen to counsel and accept discipline, that you may be wise the rest of your days. Many plans are in a man's heart, but the counsel of the Lord will stand. In other words, my plans will fail, but the Lord's plan, the Lord's will, that's going to stand if I do it. So he comes and he says, I wouldn't listen to anybody. And this is the guy who goes on to say in Proverbs that there is victory in many counselors, that with many counselors you experience victory. You have success in many counselors. But he was on a quest to fulfill his own heart, to do what he wanted to do. And that's what he was going to do. So he said, I just took counsel with myself. I told myself, there's nobody else better to talk to than me. Now, he comes and he says this, I said, come now, I will test you. In other words, I will test you. I will pour myself out in looking for this answer that I'm looking for. How to be fulfilled in life, how to be happy in life, how to achieve success in life, how to not be so empty in life, how not to be so down and discouraged and disheartened in life. He said, that's what I'm going to pour myself into. I'm going to live like the world, and I'm going to see just exactly what it takes in order to fulfill my life. Now, I've got to tell you something up front. I called when I was working on my PhD, I had a year of rhetoric and logic, and my rhetoric and logic professor was Barry McCarty, who happens to be the parliamentarian for the Southern Baptist Convention, and he's got a PhD in rhetoric from the University of Pittsburgh. I like to tell him you went to UP. To PU. I like to tell him, you went to, is that where you got that degree? It's PU, Pew. Anyway, I called him and I said, listen, there's got to be a type of literature of Ecclesiastes other than wisdom because it is so depressive. And he said, well, I've never thought about that, but there's not a type of literature that encompasses that. I said, well, it's got to be like a murder mystery. I said, the depression there is a part of just the tension that is created in Ecclesiastes before it is ever resolved. And let me tell you, the whole book of Ecclesiastes is resolved in the last 2 verses of the last chapter. It's like Agatha Christie murder mystery, where it's just every chapter it's unresolved and it gets a little more puzzling, and unresolved and a little more puzzling. And the whole genre of this literature is to just leave you with this unresolved, and it drives your mind crazy. I've got to resolve this. Well, he's ultimately going to resolve it, but he's going to do that at the end, and he's going to leave you depressed. So let me tell you something. If you came here for a nice little ladies' devotional today, I'm sorry. I don't mean to send you out depressed, but that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's pulling you in to see how bad life is apart from God. That life out of sync, out of balance, leaves you just simply empty. It leaves you in a hole. It leaves you ringing hollow. Life apart, all the things in life and all the things in life that you pursue just ring hollow apart from God. Now let me go, because I just have 2 things I want to show you, and I really would love to preach the entire chapter, but that's impossible. So let me give you the first 2 things in these first 11 verses. Number 1, it is the whole issue of hedonism in a life out of balance. Life becomes consumed with hedonism when it's out of balance with God. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure. So enjoy yourself. Just go knock yourself out. In fact, over this whole thing, what you could do is you could write the word Wayne's World. Party hard dude. Dana Carvey and what's that other guy's name? Mike Myers. Mike Myers and Dana Hart. I've never seen Wayne's World. It's just too silly for me. But that's the whole thing. Just go party hard, dude. That's what this is all about. And that's what he's going to do. He says, I've set my mind to it. So he begins with laughter. He comes and he says in verse 2, I said of laughter, it is madness, and of pleasure, what does it accomplish? So he's going to tell you right out the gate that none of this is going to accomplish anything that he thought it would bring about. And he starts with laughter. Now, let me just say something right here. Too many people in church are way too serious too much of the time. Really, there's nothing sinful about laughter. There's nothing sinful about having a good time. There's nothing sinful about enjoying each other's company. Not a thing in the world wrong with any of that. That's not what he's talking about. But I declare, some of y'all, I've never seen you laugh. I'm not joking. And some of you, I've never even seen you smile. In all truth, if you're saved, I honestly think you must have been baptized in pickle juice. It's not a good, listen, let me tell you, it's not a good advertisement for the kingdom of God or for Valleydale Church for us to walk around so sour. Amen. So that's not, I want to say that up front. This is not at all what he's talking about. We can laugh. We should laugh. You need to laugh. In fact, Solomon tells us back in Proverbs that a joyful heart is good medicine. But a broken spirit dries the bones. I think some of y'all got dry bones. So anyway, that's what he's talking about. But that's not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is this: to make everything a joke, to turn everything into a joke. You ever known anybody like that? They wear on you. You get tired of being around. Somebody just makes a joke out of everything, even the serious things in life. Everything that comes up, it's got to be, life has got to be the comedy zone. One comic after another, after another, after another. And that's what he said. I gave myself to it. Now I want to show you something here. I love word studies. I've looked this up. I've not had long enough to think about it because it just really hit me this morning. When he says it's madness, the Hebrew word used here for madness, now listen to this, is very closely akin to the word glory. Now that is enough to make me want to walk out of here and grab some books and go sit down and study for about an hour. I want to know what is the relationship between madness and glory, other than I sense that what's being said is that madness is the attempt to grab glory for yourself. And that this madness of laughter is an attempt to get yourself in the spotlight and yourself on the stage and yourself in front of an audience constantly. It is your attempt to be the center of attention. And that's what Solomon is saying here. In trying to be funny all the time, all you're doing is attempting to draw attention to yourself. And he comes now with the second thing. He says, so I explored with my mind. You keep reading this, and to me, it is proof that he's lost his mind. At least in this chapter, I explored with my mind. How to do what? How to stimulate. Now he's going to turn to the stimulation of the body. He's going to turn and he's going to give you an illustration of what he's going to stimulate himself with. But there are a lot of things you can stimulate yourself with. Some people stimulate themselves with money. Some people stimulate themselves with athletics. Some people stimulate themselves with shopping. I think my wife is listening. Some people stimulate themselves with food. Some people stimulate themselves with, all kind of things in life. There's so many things in life that people use as a stimulus to make them feel something. But he gives you a definition of what he's going to use. He says, I'm going to stimulate my body with alcohol, with wine. Now, he doesn't mean just some little, 1% alcohol content. That's not what he's talking. He's talking about, I'm trying to give myself enough of a buzz at the right point to where I still maintain control of my faculties. Now, that's proof to me he's going off the rails right here. Because the whole point of alcohol is to get you out of control. He says, and now I could care less if a single soul in this place agrees with me. In fact, it makes me more bold. Just wait to what I'm going to tell you. I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine while my mind was guiding me wisely. Do you see that? That's an impossible thing to do. Do you understand that he is saying, I'm trying to use something that takes away your capacity to control yourself, and yet I'm trying to keep the capacity to control myself while taking this. And part of what this does is it deceives you into thinking, oh yeah, I'm in control. I've dealt with drunks pretty much a lot of my life, and I have never had a drunk say, hey, I'm out of control. No, they're always this, hey, I'm in complete control. I can handle it all. Now, I realize some of this gets a little hard and some of it gets a little too close, but I'm telling you, this is why you need to leave this stuff alone. It doesn't do one thing for you in the eyes of anybody. And you can find something else to occupy your hands while you're standing around talking to people. Yes, I said it. And just as I said a moment ago, if it upsets you, then good. That's what he said. This was the wisest guy in the world. This was the most intelligent man on earth. And he said, I'm going to try to take that which keeps me in a stupor, but yet thinking I'm in control. I'm going to try to do that to myself. And he finds out, can't be done. Can't be done. So, and you say, well, now, you know, that's just a reference there, preacher, that let me give you a life in the day of Solomon. Let me just tell you what life was like for Solomon on an average day basis. I'm going to talk to you about his home in just a moment. But in this palace in which he lived, this is the excess. Well, all of this is to the excess. And you say, well, can you drink? Not drinking to excess? Well, how much is excess for you? The problem is you don't know. You're playing with a loaded gun is what you're doing. The best thing to do for wisdom and witness is leave the stuff alone. Now, anyway, let me give you a day in the life of Solomon. Now, here it is. Now, this is what they prepared every day. First of all, and you find this in 1 Kings chapter 4, 22 through 23, they prepared 30 cores of fine flour. Now, this was all for baking purposes here. And you say, I don't know what a core is. It's about 10 bushels. Now, I know I'm talking to city folks. I can tell you, I know what a bushel basket is because my daddy would drive up in the yard with bushel baskets full of peas and butter beans. And I hate it to this day, having to, because you had to shell that stuff. Well, a core is 10 bushels, and he had 30 cores of fine flour, baked goods, every single day. 60 cores of meal or grain, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep besides deer, gazelle, roebucks, and fatted fowl, birds. That was one day's buffet at the house of Solomon, which would feed somewhere up to 20,000 people a day. It's no fun to drink by yourself. It's no fun to just get crazy by yourself. So he would have somewhere between 10 and 20,000 people in a single day in his house eating all. It was a regular, listen, this was Las Vegas on steroids. He had a ballroom that could hold evidently up to 20,000. It's bigger than what Trump's building at the White House. He could hold more people than 20,000. He had all the alcohol you could imagine. He had one comic after another, after one behind the other, and the biggest buffet you've ever imagined in your life. Did it make him happy? Did it satisfy him? That he was doing all of this and life was one great big party? He was entertaining himself to death. That's the American culture today. We are literally a people that are entertaining ourselves. In fact, I think we are more of a culture that is into entertainment than any culture that has existed in history, with the exception maybe of the Romans. And their entertainment finally was, let's kill people and be entertained by that. And I'm going to tell you something, with the way you're seeing people shot in this country, I'm not so sure that hadn't become entertainment. Well, we're driving ourselves crazy with it. We've got to be constantly entertained. We've got to constantly have something going on in our lives because we've come to the place that's the only way we feel something. And so we drive ourselves. I've got to have the perfect entertaining vacation. I've got to have the perfect entertaining party at the perfect house with the perfect accoutrements and accessories. I've got to have the perfect this and the perfect that and the perfect, and we're driving ourselves nuts and to the poorhouse with all of this kind of craziness. That's where Solomon is. That's what he said he did. That's what he was doing. Let me give you the second thing, because he turns from hedonism to materialism. You see how one flows right into the other? He turns to this materialism in a life that is out of balance spiritually. And so he says, I'm basically going to be a lab rat. Now just watch this, because you get the sense that he's just running through a maze here. I'm going to test myself. I'm gonna make out that I'm a lab rat and I'm in a maze, and I'm going to get to the end of this, and I'm going to find the solution to being satisfied and happy in life. So where does he start? Well, he builds a house. No, he doesn't just build one house, he builds multiple houses. I enlarged my works. I built houses, plural, for myself. Well, my stars, the house, the palace that he built the temple. It took him 7 years to build the temple, and it took him 13 years to build his palace. If you can imagine such a thing. Built right next to one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world was the Palace of Solomon. And he had multiple homes. You go back, listen, that's true in our day. How many homes do you think Putin had? Lord, how many homes do you think Trump had? How many homes? Listen, Herod, in Herod's day, had multiple homes. I'll take you to one of them if you go with me to Israel, to the Herodian. It is built out on the other side of Bethlehem, and it's built down kind of in a valley. And Herod told his workers, I want you to build me a mountain, and on top of it, I will build a palace, but I want to be able to see Jerusalem from here. So they built a mountain. They came back to him and said, long live the king. O king, we built your mountain, but you really can't see Jerusalem. He said, well, you will. You get back until building it until I do. So you'll go up into Herod's palace. By the way, that's where he died. That's where they found his body, was there. It's been lost for 2,000 years. And a Hebrew archaeology professor digging around there at the Herodian found his body, fell over backwards, and he died. That's the truth. Well, he had homes all over there. He had a home in Jericho, had a home down in Masada. He had this home called the Herodian. He had this home up in Jerusalem. So he had Macarius, by the way. He had that over on the other side of the Jordan. All of these multiple homes. And here's Solomon with this home. He had the Hall of Cedars. He had the Hall of Pillars. He had the Hall of Judgment. And then he had 2 other halls, not counting all the other rooms in this palace. It was something beyond Versailles. It was something that would make Windsor Castle look meek and mild. And so he said, I built houses in the plural. And then he comes to this whole thing of horticulture. He said, I planted vineyards for myself. He got into landscaping. I made gardens and parks for myself. I planted them all, in all of them, these fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself from which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. He says, I was the consummate landscape artist, planting forests and groves of trees and digging out irrigation ponds and getting water in a dry place where you never see anything like this. He just knocked himself out with that. I'd knocked myself out before I got into that. Number 3, he collected gold and silver. Listen to what is said right here in verse 8. I collected for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. And notice something else, and I'm going to come to this in a moment. I provided for myself male and female singers. In other words, I had entertainment. I had a boom box. While I was doing all this stuff, I had singers going on. I had people singing. I had choirs. I had entertainment just passing through as I collected all of this. And I shared with you the other day that the Bible tells us that he collected somewhere around 666 talents of gold. That's 24 tons of gold a year. And the last day I looked at gold was this past Wednesday, maybe, and I think gold was selling for $4,155 an ounce. an ounce. Can you imagine the wealth that this guy, and they didn't even count the silver. They didn't bother with the silver. It's like me with pennies. I can't remember what I did. I was somewhere and I got some, we went to eat and the girl gives me back 4 pennies. Well, I look to see if there's a wheat penny, and then I just put the 4 pennies back down there. That's the way silver was to Israel in the days of Solomon. The Bible says that silver was so plentiful, it was like pebbles in the street. People just threw it out. What am I going to do with this silver? Just throw it out because I've got gold. That was the gold that was there for Solomon in that day, if you can imagine such a thing. He accumulated humans. Now, you talk about the ultimate in accumulation. I bought male, look at verse 7. I bought male and female slaves. And out of that, I bred them, and I had homeborn slaves. You know, I've got a dark-eyed, dark-haired young girl here, and here's a light-haired, blue-eyed guy here, and I'm just going to breed them and see what the offspring's going to look like. You talk about the ultimate of boredom. You talk about life when you've accumulated everything. You say, "Man, a preacher, we don't accumulate people." No, but we certainly know how to manipulate them, don't we? We know how to step in people's lives and begin to control some things. We may not own people today, but let me tell you something. We do what is very close to it, and that is when we're bored in life, we will try to manipulate somebody. Boredom. Do you know they never had the word for boredom? Solomon, as smart as he was, never knew the word boredom. It is a very late word coming into our vocabulary. John Roseman, who is this syndicated columnist, writer, author, great writer, by the way, if you come across some of his stuff, great writer, great author, great lecturer, speaker. He is a very famous family psychologist in New York and did a study on boredom in children. So he went back and he got parents who were parents in the 40s and 50s of, just children. And he asked the parents, he said, do you remember any time your child ever said that they were bored? And the reply from the parents of their children in the 40s and 50s said, no to, maybe once or twice, but generally no, they never said it. Now that's interesting because today boredom is considered to be one of the number one issues with children in our day. So he went and he asked a second question. Now this is the interesting part of these psychologists and psychiatrists, how they know what questions to ask. He says, well, I want to know about the toys that your children had. How many toys did your children have? And the parents of these children back in the 40s and 50s said, well, they had everything from no toys to 10. Somewhere in between, generally 3 or 4 toys, but between no toys and 10 toys. And then he asked the question, well, what kind of toys were they? And the answer was consistently, these are homemade toys. These are toys that we made that were homemade. They were not toys that they got down at Toys R Us because nobody knew about Toys R Us at the time. So now he turns around and he goes to the parents of children today. And he asks the same questions. And he discovers this, that in the life of the average 5-year-old, by the time a child is 5 years of age, they have accumulated 250 toys. A 5-year-old has lived 260 weeks. So in other words, they accumulate a toy a week in their life. And they walk around and they talk about how bored they are. Don't tell me that our sins don't pass down to our children because our kids hear us as we talk about the boredom and they see the boredom of our lives because we have spent so much time and so much energy and so much money on all our playthings, and it doesn't make us happy either. Welcome to Valleydale for those of you that are visiting today. You depressed? That's what it's intended to be. It's depressing. This is life without God. God has no say-so. God has nothing in here to offer us whatsoever. And the last thing that I'm going to look at here is this, is his sex life out of control. His sexual interests that are out of control. This instant need for gratification. He comes at the end of verse 8 and he speaks of the pleasures of men, many concubines. This is a guy who had 700 wives and then 300 concubines. They were wives too. It's just, they were just in a different status, but you might as well say the man had 1,000 wives. Do you understand it would take him every night for 3 years to work himself through all of those women? Whew. His life is out of control. Everything about him is out of control. And yet our society today says this is where happiness and fulfillment is found. In all of this that I've just read you. And let me tell you why, especially in the area of the sexual, and let me tell you why our society defends this today. Number one, they claim to be products of nature. Oh, well, we're just living out our natural nature. We're just living this out and doing what we're... Absolutely you are. You've got a fallen nature. Man, since Adam sinned, has been wallowing in sin. Number two, the second thing is they point out through studies and statistics, everybody's doing it. Well, sure, the whole world is lost into sin. They're no different anywhere else. We're all basically the same. And the third thing is this. They claim that to deny myself the privilege of living out my sexual life will hurt my psyche. You already messed up. Denying yourself would help you. You'll destroy everything in your life if you keep demanding to have everything you want. Let me show you the three responses out of this. Look at this in verse 9, verse 10, and verse 11. In verse 9, this is the response. This is the inflated ego that comes from living like that. Then I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. No, it didn't. You're out of your mind, Solomon. It didn't stand by you. I became great. There's nobody greater. I've done it more. I've got more. I am smarter than everybody else. I increased more than all who preceded me. Verse 10, the second thing is this, is irresponsibility. All that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. That's America today. If I see it, I want it, I'm getting it. I'm not going to hold myself back. I'm liable to damage myself if I don't give myself. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. That's what his heart kept telling him. That was the lie, and the deception of his heart is, oh, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Oh yeah, I'm really satisfied. This really satisfies me. This really meets my need. This is really what I want in life. It gets no better than this. And we keep telling ourselves that same thing, while the fact of the matter is we are as empty as can be on the inside. Look at this last one right here. Diminishing returns. Now he comes to the truth of this. Thus I considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I exerted, and behold, vanity. That's boredom. He didn't have the word, but it's boredom. Vanity, empty, nothingness, running after the wind, no profit whatsoever in life. I've lived my whole life. I've achieved all these things that are supposed to be signs of success. Nothing. I was looking up this movie. A lot of y'all have never heard of it. It came out in 1941. It was, the chief actor was Orson Welles. The director was Orson Welles. The producer was Orson Welles. Orson Welles was this fabulous actor, writer back in the day. And he wrote what is considered to be the greatest movie ever made, Citizen Kane. Now, some of y'all have never seen it. Some of y'all ought to go home and watch it this afternoon. You'd be fascinated by it. It's black and white, so, just prepare your little hearts for that. But he plays this guy by the name of Charles Foster Kane. Charles Foster Kane becomes this incredibly wealthy journalist. He's a journalist. It really is the story about the life of William Randolph Hearst, who fought this movie coming out tooth and nail and pretty much made it a flop when it came out, although it was nominated for 9 Oscars. 9. This guy was in his 20s when he did this. And so it's considered the greatest movie. But this guy, Citizen Kane, Charles Foster Kane, he acquired money and he acquired it and acquired it and acquired it. He lost his family. He lost all of his friendships. He lost every friend that he had. He lost everybody around him. He just was by himself. He died by himself. Nobody was with him. And when you get to the end of the movie, I got a clip I'm going to show you. You get to the end of the movie, you come to the basement of the castle that he lived in, and he's got it full of all of this, all of these things that he has purchased and bought that he could never fit into his house. You ever get so much in your house you have nowhere to put anything else? Well, this was all down in the basement of this castle, and it just goes on and on and on from there. It's going to run. It is going to come. Just watch all of this as it just pans through the last scene of this movie. All of this stuff. Some of y'all got basements that look like this. All this junk. I've acquired, I've purchased, I've bought, I've attained. And this guy's dead now. Charles Foster Kane is dead in the movie. You're going to see, here's a picture of Orson Welles right there. It's kind of funny that it stops on this picture of him. And look at what happens to it. They're going to burn it all. It's all going to burn up. Every bit of it burns up. And there's the sleigh, and you wonder where the word rosebud comes from, because it's mentioned throughout the entire movie. Rosebud was his slave. It was the only happy moment of his childhood. One day in the snow, he was out, snowboarding on Rosebud. And he wants to remember, I want that moment back, that one moment when I was a boy and I was happy, but now all of life has been given to stuff, and now you watch his whole life as it goes up in smoke. Solomon says that's life. That's your life when you live it apart from God. You can get it all, you can have it all, and it will all burn up in the end. Let's stand.